Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Dagoba by Night, out February 18th on Napalm Records. The album has 11 tracks, 40 minutes in length, and this is the band's 8th full-length studio album. They are a French heavy metal band. Now for this record they put together a design structure that has modern touches but also more classic approaches. This is a record that starts off with an intro, electronic intro, finishes with an electronic outro, going full circle. In the middle you have a break. You actually have a song called Break. Works as an interlude / intermission that divides the record into two halves. Two halves that have a lot of diversity, that are very dynamic, having some elements in common but also having diverging elements at the same time. But this is an album that early on tells the listener exactly where are going to be the parameters, what are the borders, how far are they willing to go with their diversity. And once as a listener you understand that aspect of the album, everything else falls in place. It allows the record to go into a lot of different directions, creating different soundscapes, different atmospheres, but still feel connected, still feel cohesive, and still feel balanced as one from start to finish. Once you move into the sound, this is a record that's driven by the electronic side of the band, but they have a lot of influences. Groove metal, industrial, classic rock, heavy metal, everything is there. You can really pinpoint from song to song what's driving the experience of those tracks and what's influencing the soundscape, with the electronic side really becoming the beacon, the driving force behind everything that is happening. But that doesn't mean that the sound doesn't have soul. That doesn't mean that the sound doesn't have life, doesn't have a heartbeat, because it does. The quality of the sound stays very compact and uniform throughout all 11 tracks, regardless of the influences, regardless of where it's taking you, the atmosphere that's creating, the sound quality stays very balanced, and it gives strength to the record. It allows the album to have texture, it allows the album to have depth, to not feel flat at any given point. This is really important if you're going to depend that heavily on the electronic side. You want to create some elements beside those that give the record a little bit more substance, and I felt like the guitars and drums definitely did that. And I want to start off with those two elements because the drums do give power and heaviness to this album at times. They don't do it in a consistent basis, but they do it. Most often than not, the drums feel a little bit more subjugated to a secondary role, creating the bass line, creating the foundation, if you will, of these songs that allows everything else to come on top and then drive the listener through them. The same could be said to a certain extent to the guitars, but the guitars jump every so often to the forefront, becoming a little bit more of the igniter of the experience, moving the tracks, creating different elements, creating dynamic movements that change from song to song and change within the songs themselves. A lot of the influences on this record as far as the genres that push these tracks, either be groove metal, industrial, pure rock, or heavy metal, are really coming from the guitar sound, the execution, and how much of an impact they have on the individual tracks. So I really enjoyed the guitars. I wanted a little bit more consistency from the drums. On the electronic side, there's definitely a spotlight on it from start to finish. Sometimes it feels a little bit too much. I wanted in some songs to be more of a layer, to be something that adds flavor to the track, but it doesn't necessarily become the track. Because more often than not throughout this entire album, you're going to find them creating not just soundscapes, not just adding to the melodic drive that this record has, because this is a super melodic record due to that electronic influence, but it also has an impact in the atmosphere. So when you have an impact in the atmosphere of the tracks, and when you have an impact in the soundscape and that melodic drive, sometimes it becomes a little bit too much of a good thing, and it overshadows a little bit of the other elements behind it, and it becomes really hard to tell the forest from the trees, or at least it becomes harder for you to be able to tell what is driving your experience, what is creating this sound, what is creating this atmosphere, what are you gravitating to. The waters become slightly murky. On the vocal side, it's an incredible performance from start to finish. The range is outstanding, from the cleans to the harsh and everything in between. We really get a full plate. It's a full course meal, a 7-course meal in terms of what the vocals can deliver and what they deliver throughout this entire record. As diverse the album is musically, as much of a ebb and flow, as much of a roller coaster ride you're going to get musically on this album, you're going to get exactly the same thing vocally. Where the sound goes, the vocals follow. Where the vocals goes, the sound follows. The two are intertwined, so you always feel like they're going in the same direction, allowing the overall experience of the album to stay very continuous and giving incredible fluidity from start to finish. Overall, this is a record that sometimes loses a little bit of itself within itself. The electronic side of the album really becomes the main focus of everything that is happening, and it overshadows some of the other elements that perhaps could have had a bigger impact. I'm not saying that I didn't like the electronic elements, but I just felt like there was too much of a good thing. I wanted them, and some songs moved a little bit more into a secondary role, allowing the other elements like the guitars, drums, and bass to move a little bit more into the forefront in order for the tracks to feel like they had a different texture, to feel like they were even a little bit more diverse than what this album offers at first glance. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Sunfall. The electronic opening on this track adds a little bit of a sinister vibe to the song, which is really interesting. Then the guitars and drums come in, adding heaviness together as one. And then on top of that, you get harsh vocals that just makes the overall song feel very aggressive, very intense. Once the clean vocals come in, the song becomes more melodic, even melancholic at times, and the sound follows suit. When the vocals do that change, the sound changes with it. So it's a song that comes in waves, ups and downs, and the two main elements being sound and vocals stay very close together as one in order for those movements, in order for those waves to be very easy to understand and very easy to follow for the listener. Next, you have City Lights, a much brighter song, a much lighter song, as the name of the track implies. It's a song that's fun to listen to. It has a little bit of a pure rock vibe underneath it. The skeleton of the track is just rock music, and then once you add the electronic elements on top of it, then you start to expand that footprint, and you allow the song to have a much larger sound, a much larger presence. But that rock and roll influence is definitely there from start to finish. Vocally, it's a very incredible song because it has power, it has emotion, it really connects well with the lyrical content and what the song is doing musically in terms of carrying the listener through. It has a very hooky melodic chorus that becomes the igniter of the entire track. You're always waiting for that chorus to happen because it just has such an incredible presence, and it just makes the song feel complete. Last but not least, you have Nightclub. It starts off with an electronic sound that adds melody to the overall song, but it also has an impact in the atmosphere because you actually feel like you are at a nightclub when the song starts off, and that feel never really goes away. The song has movements, sometimes losing that electronic side or hiding it a little bit better, and sometimes bringing it a little bit more into the forefront. But that feel of being in a nightclub stays consistent from start all the way to the end. So that was a very important aspect that this track offered. I like the chorus of this song, has more of a melodic vibe. It doesn't have as much heaviness as far as sound and vocals are concerned. You get more of that in the verses. In the chorus, the song becomes a lot brighter, becomes a lot more fun to listen to, a lot more fun to enjoy, if you will. And that is the pattern that starts to emerge early on, that you're going to have heavier verses, more melodic chorus, creating those waves, creating that movement, but staying very engaged. And then when you add those electronic elements on top, that are weaving in and out, but constantly giving that sense of being in a nightclub, really allows the song to come in as one and feel absolute, complete, and strong, and deliver exactly what they wanted it to deliver. This is it. This is Dagoba by Night, out February 18th on Napalm Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.